Hello, and welcome to the My Heart and Mind podcast, where it's all about creating the feel-good mindset so you can make the most of every moment and reap the benefits of getting the most happiness out of life. And now, over to your host, Sally Crawley.
I'm Sally Crawley, a heart attack and breast cancer warrior who loves life, cats, coffee and cars. Together we're going to explore the art of living happy after a cardiac event. This show is about helping you to get your emotional power back, to gain control of your life, your mind and your body. After a heart attack, cardiac arrest, or when living with heart disease, it's not just your physical body that has life-altering changes and needs rehabilitation. Your emotions and your world can also be in turmoil. My show focuses on your mindset, your thoughts and feelings, so you can feel good now. It's about supporting you to make the lifestyle changes that will enable you to love the life you live. Welcome to episode 8 of the My Heart and Mind podcast. It's great that you're joining me today to listen to this week's special guest interview. As you know, we had an interview last week and we're going to be having an interview again next week as well. If you have an interesting story to tell that will help others, then please do drop me a line. You can email me at Sally, that's SALLIE, at myheartandmind.co.uk. Or perhaps you know someone else that would be happy to share their story. Or you may even have a topic that you'd like me to discuss on the show. Again, just let me know by email, or you can join my community on Facebook. Search for My Heart and Mind Community and you'll surely find me. So today's interview is with Claire Berouche. Claire was nominated in 2020 for the British Heart Foundation Heart Hero Awards. She has contributed in amazing ways to the raising of awareness of heart failure and has done many TV interviews. She's been in the national papers and the star of many British Heart Foundation publications. Claire shared with me her story of growing up with type 1 diabetes. And then later, like many women, myself included, she shared with me how she didn't realise that she was having a heart attack. It was nearly missed by the paramedics as well because all of her readings were perfectly fine. But just at the last minute, one of the paramedics decided to carry out an ECG. Just as well, really. Claire was blue lighted to hospital and rushed straight into the Cath lab. You can hear how she woke up in ICU to be told she would be having a triple bypass. Unfortunately now Claire lives with heart failure and she explains the different stages and what her next steps will be. We talk about how living with heart disease can impact on friends and family and the work she does raising awareness. Claire shares with me how she finds using mindfulness was very helpful in helping her to face life living with heart failure. She tells how she has found purpose in supporting others that are living with heart health issues through running a Facebook group. So let's not waste another moment. Let's meet Claire Berouche. Good morning, Claire. Welcome to the My Heart and Mind podcast. I'm glad that you can be with me today because I know that you are a very pivotal person in raising awareness for people that have experienced heart conditions, and you've been working closely with the British Heart Foundation. So before I say too much about you, I'd like you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your life before your heart attack.
Right. Well, I'm 52 years old, mother of 2 children. I've got a daughter who's in Nottingham. She's now 27, almost 28. I have a son who's not long graduated at Bournemouth in graphic design. He's now living back at home at the moment and he's 25. I've been married for 29 years and I've been type 1 diabetic since 1980, so that's 40 years now. I've always looked after my diabetes. It was inbred into me from a very, very early age, how important it was to keep your sugar levels constant and within required levels. And I've always done that, like I say, and always eaten a good, what they call Mediterranean diet.
Mm-hmm.
So, and before, like I say, I used to be a full-time mum working. I used to work full-time in retail. I was in retail management for House of Fraser. And like I say, my life was quite active. I went out walking all the time, and I was active, like a mum is, doing all the things that they do within a house, the cooking, the washing, the cleaning, the shopping.
Mm-hmm.
I did it all. So, yeah. So busy working full-time mum.
Cool.
Yeah.
So tell us, it sounds like you were living a really healthy lifestyle there, especially with the Mediterranean diet.
Yeah.
Diabetes is something that you've had to manage. But were you expecting to have a heart attack, or how did that come about?
No, not at all. I mean, again, it's something that when you're a diabetic. You always know that what comes with diabetes are things like, you can have kidney failure, you can have glaucoma and have problems with your eyes. And of course, heart attack does come into it. Heart attack and diabetes, very highly related. But like I say, armed with all this information from a young age, I just took it upon myself to make sure that I was doing everything that I possibly could, because I'd heard such awful stories that if you don't control it in your younger days and teenage, what happens later on in life. And so I was absolutely adamant that I'd try and keep it all under control. I think I probably had about 2 years in the whole 40 years of being diabetic where I probably did go off the rails a bit. Mm-hmm. Which is something that I've thought about since having a heart attack. Was it those 2 years? But that was during my kind of early 20s, leaving home and trying to settle and, just doing all the things that a 21-year-old does, going out, having a bit too much booze. And so those 2 years probably didn't look after myself quite as well.
So I mentioned that you've had a heart attack, but it was actually so much more than that. Can you share with people that are listening what actually happened?
Right. Well, as a normal weekend, on the Sunday, we've been out to the cinema. And during the cinema, I just started to feel a little bit sick. Nothing more than thinking I'd either eaten something a bit dodgy or, was having a bout of a stomach bug or something. Anyway, we came home. And very quickly, the nauseous just seemed much more extreme. So I took myself off to bed. This was probably about 3:00 on a Sunday afternoon. I took myself off to bed, and I didn't want dinner. At that point, I was drinking fluids still, but I didn't want dinner. Anyway, like I say, we went to bed normal kind of time, and I fell asleep. Then about 1:00, I woke up and I just felt absolutely horrific. I mean, I can't actually describe how I felt. You just feel everything just feels completely wrong and over. You feel very overwhelmed. I was feeling hot, clammy, anxious, and like I say, this sickness. And I thought, I'm just feeling anxious, and because nobody likes being ill, nobody likes throwing up. And I thought, oh my gosh, and so I put the kind of the hot clamminess that was coming across me in waves as just being me getting into almost a panic attack about, possibly vomiting. But I couldn't, for whatever reason. There was nothing, I couldn't vomit. So anyway, I was probably 4 or 5 times back and forth to the bed and the toilet, and this probably was over the course of about 4 hours. Finally, I suppose about 4:00 in the morning, it seemed to settle enough for me to nod off and go to sleep. Then the next 3 days I spent in bed because I still didn't feel right, but I'm the last person to go calling the doctor. Mm-hmm. Again, now something I live to regret, but so I laid in bed for the 4 days, and I think it's on the Wednesday morning of that week, my husband said, no, he said, this is enough. He said, because, we've, your diabetes, and we just need to get some advice. So he rang. The doctor suggested going into the local walk-in centre. Well, there was no way I could do either. I was feeling that poorly still. So my husband called, obviously 999, and a paramedic first responder turned up and came up, looked at me, took all my obs, and absolutely everything was fine. My blood pressure was bang on, my sugars were bang on. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. And so he said to me, he said, well, yeah, he said it probably is just a bad bug that you've had, but everything, all the readings and everything seem fine. So maybe if your husband pops off down the corner shop and gets some more paracetamol, because we were almost out of paracetamol, he said, and I'll stay here with you until he gets back. It's literally a 5-minute walk to the end of the road. So he stayed with me. During this time, an ambulance crew arrived. They came up the stairs, they introduced themselves, they relayed information between them. And then the female of the crew said, well, now that we're here, we have to do an ECG before we can go back and leave you. So she said, it's just all part of the routine. And I said, yeah, absolutely fine. So I led there. And by this time, I felt quite safe because I had medical people around me that knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And so I was not laughing, but, having a bit of a joke with them, sarky bits going back and forth. Let's have a bit of a joke. And so she put all the wires on me and then just asked me to lie back and remain quiet and still, which I did. And I could just see her face. She kind of, her eyes suddenly looked up at me. And I thought, oh. And she said, okay. The next thing I remember her calling was to the 2 male paramedics who were standing out in our hallway whilst I had the ECG in privacy. And she said, guys, you need to call in a code blue. At this point, I was sat there and I was thinking, code blue? Well, the only thing that, that relates to me is on a blue light. And I thought, surely not. And it just did not register that this could be for me, And I looked at her and I said, are you joking? She said, no. She said, I'm really sorry to tell you. She said, you've been having a heart attack. She said, it probably started on the Sunday and your heart's been struggling ever since. So I said, oh, my gosh, but still almost in disbelief. So I was wheeled into the back of the ambulance. Literally, I went to get out of bed and jump and put some pajamas on because I sleep completely naked. So I went to put some pajamas on and she said, no, you're not allowed to do a thing. You don't move. We do everything. I said, okay, fine. Still didn't register, Anyway, husband came back and they said, sorry, sir, it's changed. We're going to have to take your wife in. So he was literally threw the paracetamol through the door, shut up the shop and jumped in the back of the ambulance. They started wiring me up with all the wires and cannulas, started giving me morphine and all these other drugs that I'd need, obviously, that they knew I needed because they knew what was going to happen when I got to the hospital. And I was still sat upright in the back of the ambulance having a laugh. I said to my husband, I'll tell you what, I said, we're going to get there and they're going to call me a fraud and just tell me to bugger off, to go off home. So anyway, like I say, we were blue lighted in the ambulance. I don't know if you've ever been in the back of the ambulance, but it's not the most comfortable of rides. You feel every little bump in the road. And when you're going at that speed, you're all over the place. Yeah, no, not the best anyway. So when we got there, again, I was kind of wheeled out of the ambulance and straight through the A&E and straight through some double doors. I didn't even kind of go into what they have as accident emergency resus. I just went straight through some double doors. I didn't even have a chance to say goodbye to my husband, who at this point didn't know if he was coming or going. It was all just so kind of, 1 minute I think I've got a stomach bug. Next minute I'm being rushed through to a cath lab. So I was taken through to the cath lab. And like I say, the morphine was taking over by this time. And I was just lying there and they were doing everything that they needed to do, taking my clothes off me, gowning me up. There was a nurse that was stood with me holding my hand, and all the other kind of things going on. And it was quite frightening because there were screens and rooms where people were behind, and there were all these screens above and all the usual kind of operating theatre, cath lab kind of lights. And it was just hectic in there. I kind of almost zoned out at this point. I think that was almost with the meds as well. I'd been started to be pumped with so much meds that I was just kind of zoning out. Anyway, they went ahead and they put two stents into the right coronary artery at that point and inserted a balloon pump. A balloon pump is it's like a machine that has a catheter that goes up to your heart. And it's called a balloon pump because it inflates and deflates. So I was taken up to critical care and I was left in there with the balloon pump and the stents. Well, I suppose try and start recovering a little bit from the immediate heart attack. So that was that, but I was just completely out of it really. But it was a couple of days later. I mean, obviously people had been up to see me before that, but I'd been so kind of out of it. I hadn't really been aware what was going on. And I think it was about the second day when the cardiology consultant came up and he stood by my bed. He held my hand, you know, he was lovely. He said, well, Claire, he said, well, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. Which do you want first? And I said, doesn't matter. You know, I'm so easygoing, whichever. So he said, well, he said, the good news, he said, is that I'm stood here this morning and I'm able to have this conversation with you. And I think at that point, I thought, I've been ill. I really have been ill. And he said, the bad news is, he said, we've put 2 coronary stents into your right coronary artery. He said, enough to get a little bit of blood flow back on the heart so that you can go home for 2-3 months, he said, but we need to have you back in to do a triple heart bypass. And I said, right. I mean, again, like I say, I'm one of those people that just takes everything, you know, as it goes. I kind of take it in, take it on board, and I'm so calm and placid about it and laid back. And it's only a few hours or days later when everything starts to sink in. So at this point, I was still quite acceptant of it. Okay, well, they'll do what they've got to do. Didn't really stop and think, you know, that triple bypass is a big operation. You know, I was just thinking at that point, well, let's do anything that you have to do to get me right. So I went home and recuperated, and it was in the October of that same year that they called me back in for the triple bypass. I'm one of these people that I have to know, and I said this to my cardiologist on that morning when he'd spoken to me. I said, look, I'm not one of these patients that, you know, will kind of back away or run off, or yes, I'll be scared, but I like to know everything. I'm one of these people that have to know everything, the good, the bad, everything. So I've always had that openness and honesty with my cardiologist, which has been amazing. Anyway, I went back in for the triple bypass. It didn't quite go according to plan because a couple of the arteries, when they got in, they found weren't only blocked, but they were what they call calcified. That's when they've hardened. So instead of being nice and soft like a normal vein or artery is, they were all hard. And so if they'd have tried to do anything with them, they'd have just crumbled, basically. So, but they managed to do a triple bypass by doing what they call a Y graft instead of the whatever it was they were going to do. So it was called a Y graft. Things went well. And I was taken back up to the ward again to just recover and recuperate, as you do. I mean, obviously going through critical care and everything on the route to doing that. Sorry, I just need to take a...
You had the triple bypass.
I did, yes.
I went home and recovered?
I did, yeah. I had 10 days in hospital. And like I say, the recovery... and the pain, I mean, I've had 2 children, the recovery and the pain was, I've never had anything like it. And despite, like I say, doing all the research, watching videos of what goes on, so I was fully informed before going in for the op, I had no idea what laid in front recovery-wise. It was literally, I mean, the way I explained it to lots of people was, it was literally like being hit by one of these great big freight trains you get in the US. And most people hit by something like that, you wouldn't get back up. You know, that would be it, out. Your life would be gone, snuffed. But I had to recover. And it was a slow recovery, day by day. But yes, in the following February, I was well enough to go to cardio rehab. So I started the cardio rehab. And for the first 5 weeks, everything seemed absolutely fine. I was going in. Again, it's a nice, safe environment. You have medical people around you. So, you know, you just feel, well, they know what they're doing. So for the first 5 weeks, it went well. And I felt each week I was progressing, able to do a little bit more on the exercise bike, a little bit more. My breathing was getting a little bit better. But then suddenly, I think it was on the 5th week, like I say, 5 weeks in. And things just weren't feeling right. I was starting to feel so tired, so lethargic. And it's not just a tired, oh gosh, you've had a busy day. It was complete kind of lethargy and true fatigue. And so I insisted on seeing the cardiologist again, because once you've been handed over to the cardio team. It's their job to then kind of get you rehabilitated. And then after that, providing everything's okay, you just then see a cardiologist every 6 months to a year. So then I said, no, I need to see the cardiologist again. And they kept saying to me, no, it's fine. It's like anything else. You've just flatlined. You've just hit a bit of a bump, and I said, no. I said, I want to see the cardiologist. So
yeah, you were trusting your body this time, weren't you?
Yeah. So that was great. I had an appointment and was given an appointment, I think it was about 8 days the following week. And I went in, and like I say, Mr. Baker, who's been my cardiologist from DOT, he was the person that had met me, the minute in the Cath lab. So we had a conversation about how I was feeling and why I didn't feel things were going right. And they decided to do another set of all these kind of echoes, stress echoes, ECGs, and all the tests, nuclear tests. They decided they'd have a rerun of doing all that just to see exactly. It's the only way they can really see exactly what's going on. So that was fine, but obviously that takes, a few months, because you kind of go in, you have it, and it's not like when you're in a critical state in hospital, it all comes back immediately. It's like, going for a routine appointment. You have to wait a few weeks or months before you get the... Anyway, it was the November. So this had been the February. And then in the November, I went to see the cardiologist, and they had lots of the results back. And I was finally diagnosed with what they call third stage heart failure.
Does third stage heart failure actually mean?
It's worked out by a US scale, actually. And there's 4 stages of heart failure. The first stage is when the heart's been slightly impaired, but it doesn't really affect you. You have no symptoms. The second stage is you have a few symptoms, like breathing, if you're doing exerting yourself, doing exercise, things like that. Third stage is when your heart's that impaired that you've got almost a side of the heart that's not working at all, and the other side has to take over and compensate. And with that comes much more symptoms. Like I say, not just the breathlessness, but the angina. It's, like I say, constantly feeling tired and lethargic.
So how did you feel? Because I'm sure that wasn't what you were expecting to hear.
Yeah. Well, having a diagnosis of heart failure, I actually have to say, hand on heart, pun. I really, like lots of people out there, all about cancer, the symptoms of cancer, the treatment you have to have, the prognosis. With heart failure, I was completely, didn't really have much of a clue. And so I had to go through rehab again, which I did. That all went well. When I was initially told that I had the heart failure, I just sat there in complete disbelief. I thought, I've done all this. I've had triple heart bypass, stents. I've gone through all this, and yet here I am, my heart is failing. So it took a while to absorb that, I have to say, and I think that probably hit me more than being told I'd had a major heart attack and needed surgery, the fact that I was in heart failure. And so I came home, and like I say, I started doing more research, finding out lots and lots about it, joining support groups, everything, that I could possibly do. And that was fine. But like I say, it was like having the rug taken from under your feet, not just for me, for my husband, my children, all my family and close friends. They've all been affected by it and had to kind of cope with it. And sometimes actually I think it's easier for me as the patient to deal with it than it is to somebody like my husband having to watch me go through it and be helpless,
Yeah, I do. I think it's because as the patient, you have some semblance of control, whereas for our friends and our families, they have got no comprehension and understanding of it, and all they want to do is make things better, and yet they can't.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but like I say, they've been my rock. They've my father, my stepmom, because actually I haven't said, but I lost my mum when I was just 17. She'd had rheumatic fever. She'd had rheumatic fever when she was younger, and that had scarred her heart valve. Back then, she was given the opportunity of heart surgery, but then the chance of survival was only 50-50. So this shows you how much, we've advanced medicine-wise and procedure-wise. So she opted not to have the operation. She wasn't affected. It didn't seem to be affecting her that much. She was living a normal life. So that was fine. And like I said, when I was 17, she literally dropped down dead in front of us, literally. So, but I've been told that her heart murmur, as it was called, is nothing to do with what I have. Because the first thing I started to think was, is it related? But it's not. It's nothing hereditary. This is purely something different. So, but like I say, so my dad and Sue and my husband have been my absolute rock, and I couldn't have done it without them. But like I say, the way it's changed is going from a full-time mum, running the house and working. If I go out now, it all has to be planned. I have a mobile scooter, which I use. And if my husband's here every weekend, quite often I'll just go out in the wheelchair, just go out and get some fresh air. I've got a stair lift just here to my right, which takes me up to my first floor. I can't even climb a 13-step staircase in my house. Life has changed completely. Absolutely everything, even something as simple as going out for a cup of coffee and trying to meet a friend. You've got to think, are there accessible toilets? Can I park near enough to the restaurant to be able to walk probably about 50 meters, 100 meters max, or probably not even that, 50 meters, to where we're meeting. And it just has to be planned in advance. And you get to the point that you find out who your real friends are. Lots of friends started kind of backing away and leaving me out because I think it was just, I'm not blaming them, but, because they all have their lives still. And they wanted to go out and be able to, swan from one pub to another pub or one cafe to another cafe and do the things that you normally do, for your kind of, entertainment. And so, like I say, there are a couple of friends that really, really stuck by me, which are still, with me today and still come and see me and take me out. And it's lovely. It's really, really lovely. But on the whole, like I say, a lot of my friends, they didn't show much interest and weren't really there for me. They were, but not like I needed them to be. I suppose the fact of people don't understand, as I said before, cancer, people know. Heart failure, as I say, hand on heart, I didn't know. And I know that there's hundreds, thousands of people out there who haven't got a clue. And I know this because I went with the BHF on one occasion, and they were just absolutely amazing. And we were just stood in, I was sat in my wheelchair, a street in London. And we were just doing a survey, asking people as they were passing, excuse me, can we ask you, have you heard of heart failure? Do you know anything about heart failure? People had no idea at all what it actually was. But like I say, I didn't either, so you can't knock that.
I think actually, even with heart attacks, people don't really understand. My story, one of my best friends 20 years ago had a heart attack. I can remember visiting him and knowing what had happened and how worrying the situation was. But having had a heart attack myself, I didn't realise the impact on his life and his well-being and that. So I think education, which is the work that I know that you're doing with the British Heart Foundation, is really key to understanding. Yeah. So I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all. Like I say, what you said is it's very true. People tend to think, oh, somebody's got a problem with the heart, they have a heart attack, that's it, they go home, they get better, end of. And it's not. Like I say, there are so many. I mean, again, people just think heart problem is a heart attack. It's a heart attack. It's a heart. There are so many different things that can go wrong with your heart, not just on the electrical side, but on the pumping artery side, blood flow side.
We do both the electrician and the plumber sometimes.
It is absolutely is it an electrical problem or plumbing problem? And quite often when you've got a plumbing problem, the electric problem does come in later. Anyway, also, sorry, I meant to say, going back to the heart failure, I ended at stage 3, but then stage 4 is when every intervention that can possibly be done has really been done at that point. All the bypasses, all the stents, all the machines you've been kitted out with.
So where are you in your journey of the heart failure?
I'm still at stage 3. I'm very fortunate because a year after I'd recuperated and been told I had heart failure, they decided to put an ICD in just under my collarbone, and that's like a little machine. It's like a little mini defibrillator. So if your heart goes into a cardiac arrest, because I've been told that I might have what they call a sudden cardiac arrest, and so this has been fitted as a precaution. Touch wood, it's never gone off yet. So that's a big bonus.
I'll keep my fingers crossed on that
one. My fingers crossed too, absolutely. So, but I've been very lucky. Like I say, I've had my cardiologist has been absolutely wonderful, you know. But it's been, where are we now? It's 8 years. It took probably the best part of 6 years, and this is why. Well, I'm going off the track, but 6 years to become what I call stable, because I am at the moment. I'm very, very stable. I'm probably the best that I've been since having my heart attack. So I'm really stable, but I know what is coming next. I don't know when, but I know what will be next. And I've been told that will be what they call an LVAD, an LVAD, which is the left ventricular assist device. Mm-hmm. This device is actually plumbed directly into the heart, so it means more open heart surgery. And it's a device that's like a little box that literally sits in your chest cavity alongside your heart. And like I say, it has they have to literally cut a hole in the heart to put this mechanism, attach it to it. And then from out of there, you then have what they call a line, which is for electricity cable, believe it or not. So the thing sits in your body, but an electric cable runs out of the side just under your arm. And that is fitted to a battery pack. And obviously, once you have this, you have to wear this battery pack 24/7, even when you're sleeping. Through the day, the batteries will support you and keep things going as they should. Then at night, you plug it in like you plug your mobile phone into charge. I mean, I'm laughing about it, but it's not funny. It's, you know, this is serious stuff.
Yeah, and your life depends on it.
Your life does depend on it, yeah. And they do that for 2 reasons. Quite often, it is literally used as what they call bridging. Bridging is basically when somebody's heart's got so bad that they probably won't be able to live for much longer without this device fitted to help keep the heart pumping, you know, as much as they can. And they do that sometimes people use them just to make them feel better, and they're used like that. But majority of the times it's for this bridging. And that is when you're waiting for a heart transplant. It gets to that point that you're in 4th stage, or what they call end. I don't like using the word end, heart failure. I call it 4th stage heart failure. And that's the point that I'm kind of heading to.
Right. But at the moment, you're stable.
At the moment, I'm stable, yeah. And again, like I say, it all just seems like I'm saying it by the by, but what can I do? I have 2 choices. I can either take myself off and go and curl up in a corner and think, oh, woe is me.
Yeah.
Or you get on and you have to fight it. There's no way out. There's nothing else. So I've always been one of these people, like I say, tell me everything, warts and all, and I'll deal with it. I'll take it on board and I'll deal with it. I've always been a positive person, and I'm not saying I haven't had my depressions. Oh my God, counselling. I mean, this is the thing. People think, oh, it's it's just a physical thing. I think the mental turmoil and side of things is just as bad, actually. And again, this comes back to people's understanding, because I have a disabled badge for my car, and people will look at me, and because I look I've been told I look a picture of health. People will look at me, and it's very hard, like you say, for people that don't understand, to comprehend what is going on in my body and how I feel every day when I look like a well person.
Yeah.
And so this is something that people with heart failure are kind of have to deal with every day. You know, I've been called fraudulent and all sorts, you know, when I've just got out of the car because I haven't got a limb missing.
Yes.
You know, and I think perhaps we've all been a little bit judgmental of that sometimes. I know I had before my heart failure. You know, I'd look at somebody and say, well, they don't look very disabled. You know, it's just the way we are again, you know. But it is very, very difficult. And I think that's what lots of people with heart failure find the hardest, that people just have no grasp. They just can't understand how you can be feeling so poorly and looking reasonably good.
Yeah.
So counselling, I've had lots of counselling. The best that I had was this new type of counselling that's called mindfulness.
Oh, yes.
This was an 8-week course. It was done as a group. There were just 4 people in the group, so it was very small, intimate. Mm-hmm. And there were 2 trained nurses, heart failure nurses, that run the programme. And it was just absolutely amazing. You know, it told you how to kind of take on your thoughts, how to think about things, and it just everything. I mean, it just taught you everything. And I now, even today, I use some of those strategies. You know, if I'm kind of having a bad day, and I will, like I say, I sound fantastic and bright now, but I will have a bad day. There'll be days when I get up and I feel so down. Husband's gone out to work. My son's gone out to work. And I'll sit in my kitchen and tears will just start rolling down my face. And like I say, there's nobody around to pull me out of that.
Yeah.
So, you know, I start using some of the strategies that I would talk. You know, it's just a day. It's just a day. It's fine. Don't feel guilty for, you know, because I used to think, oh God, you know, here's me crying over this, and there's people out there with no home, no fresh running water, no food on the table. So, like I say, it's an explosion of all these emotions. It's like a roller coaster that you go on. And so I'd sit there and I was learned and taught that, you know, it's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to cry, and just let that be, and know and hope that, you know, you'll get up tomorrow and it'll be a better day.
Yeah, everything changes, doesn't it?
Yeah, everything changes. Absolutely. And I was taught things like, you know, because like I say, guilt was a huge thing. Why? I kept thinking, why? You know, why have I looked after myself for 40 years, kept all my sugar levels almost bang on track, apart from those 2 years when I was a bit of a rebel. And yet here I am, you know, here I am in the situation that I'm in. It's just not right. And I went through thinking, what could I have done differently?
Yeah.
What have I done wrong? Blaming myself. And you blame yourself so much because, like I say, my husband's life's completely changed. He works a full-time job, and when he's at home, he now does all the shopping, the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry.
Yeah.
Plus is there to help me. He doesn't have to help me as in so much as shower and physical things like that, although there are days when I can't even shower without him because I'm that exhausted. But, you know, so his life's changed completely, and I felt guilty for that, you know, because he's 52, the same age, and he's fit and healthy.
Yeah. So there's something about mourning the life that you had before and the changes.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I say, so the emotional side is a big one to deal with, and I think that even when your health is in a good place, I think the emotional side, I think you never get rid of. So that was the point that I thought, right, I need to get some kind of support, some real understanding from people that you know, understand. And I still wasn't kind of, like I say, I've never been a very technical person. Even working at House of Fraser, I'd been on the shop floor more than the technical side of things with computers. So my son said to me, he said, why don't you have a look on Facebook? And I said, Facebook? He said, yeah. He said, look, Mum, he said, I'll log you in, get you an account. He said, you can go on there and browse all sorts. He said, if you put in heart support groups, he said, a whole load will probably come up. Mm-hmm. So, and they did. And originally I joined British Hearties, Worldwide Hearties.
Yeah,
which is run by Jeff Sykes, a wonderful chap. And it was great. And I met, like I say, Elaine Harris and Liz and a few other people that are still, speaking with. And it was Elaine who realised that the way ladies wanted to talk about it was much more in-depth, intimate, and, they wanted to talk about all the sensitive things. Men, some men are like that. Again, I don't want to be judgmental and say but men are very different how they grasp information and deal with it. So she decided, she said to me, how would you feel, and Liz, she said, how would you feel about coming on board with me and setting up this heart group? Like I say, I was so new to it all, I didn't really have a clue what she meant.
Yeah.
So, but I thought, well, what else have I got to do? What's the harm in it?
Yeah.
So I did. And I think now I spend 24 hours a day, every day on Facebook, which isn't good. But it was the best thing I ever did. Because like I say, Elaine is the founder, and Liz and I do the admin side, along with Elaine. I don't know. I think the more I got used to using the computer and interacting with all the ladies and things, the more I kept wanting to do. Mm. And so before they knew where they were, poor Elaine, the group didn't really have any, she's gorgeous, but the group didn't really have any structure. People would just go on there, when they had perhaps an appointment, they wanted to talk about an appointment and ask for information, which is great. You have to deal with the serious side, but it was all about, it was just all talk about things that were happening. But I came in, and the first thing I did was I just felt, I knew there were lots of ladies out there that were joining the group who were on their own, because some of the ladies haven't actually had the heart problems themselves, but they might have recently lost a partner or a daughter or a son, but they're all related to heart issues in some way. And I thought, like I say, I'm one of these people that are positive, and I try to install that energy into other people. So I started waking up, the first thing I do every morning was say, good morning, good morning. And the amount of ladies that would then respond and said to me, even though I'm not in the room with them, but just being on a group saying good morning lifted somebody's spirit. And that went from doing a morning post to an afternoon post, all things through the morning, all things through the afternoon, a good night post. And it's just something that I've started doing, like I say. And Elaine has been amazing because, like I say, it's her group, but basically she gives me free running, There are things that I kind of put by her, obviously, but she gives me free running to do everything, like I say, a quiz, Secret Santa, but lots of things just to try and keep the ladies motivated and positive and, to give them something to kind of have,
It sounds to me that you're giving comfort, advice, support, somewhere where people can actually talk and be heard. Because I think sometimes, like going back earlier in our conversation where people don't understand, it's very hard to have that. And advice was given to me not long after my heart attack was to talk, and then talk some more.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It sounds like it's the Bell's Hearties group, isn't it?
Yes,
the place to be. And you do choose some really beautiful photographs, I have to say, to go with your
morning. Oh, thank you.
Greetings.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, lots of people find it hard. You have to realise, as I say, I'm very open with what I put out there, telling people, what I've been through. It doesn't, I'm happy to tell anybody anything of what's happened, truthfully. But there are some people that don't like to discuss things like that. They don't like to discuss having mental issues. And I think another thing Bell's Hearties has done is allowed all these women to realise that, as you say, there really are other people out there who are and have gone through exactly the same things. And when they say they understand, they really do understand. If you're having a bad day, you can't stop crying, or, you're worried about a procedure you've got to have. And I do, so when I empathise with them, I always, I'm truthful, but I try to be constructive and positive in how I put it through. Yes, okay, this is what's got to happen. But as I say, there's no other way out. It's something that has to happen. It's part of your journey. So, and with this, Bell's Hearties, and I'm not, like I say, I'm not ashamed to say, Bell's Hearties have saved me many times as well, many times, because this is where I do feel selfish again. The emotional comes into it. I feel selfish, but it helps me, because as long as I'm helping other people, I don't want reward, like I say, or recognition, but it's nice to feel that you're doing something good to help other people. And that gives me a buzz, a high. And I love to know that I'm helping other people.
It sounds like Bell's Hearties has given you purpose and some meaning in your life and a direction of the place to go. But I'm also aware of your contribution to the work of the British Heart Foundation. Can you tell me something about that? What you're doing for them?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you just said, feeling worthless and useless after being a full-time working mum are two things that you find very hard to cope with, But yes, and I suppose from being on Bell's Hearties, as I say, I've met loads and loads of lovely ladies, and I've also met, because obviously on the group, the British Heart Foundation are keen to be with different heart groups, because obviously they need people like myself, patients, to grasp information from of how it actually affects somebody. They can do all the medical stuff that you read in the books, but they need to know how it actually affects somebody. So lovely Ruth Huntsman from the BHF just put a post up on the group asking for anybody to come forward that was in third stage heart failure, who was happy to do a TV interview, or actually no, it was an interview just over the phone with her about my journey so far and what had happened. So I put my hand up kind of thing and said, yeah, fantastic. And from then on in, I've never looked back. I've met so many people at BHF through Ruth. Because like I say, I'm always such a, I said to her, I'm up for anything you want to discuss and talk about, I'm up for it. And so she said, you're going to regret saying that, but I don't.
No.
So before I knew where I was, I had different members from the BHF calling me, emailing me, saying, can you do this? Can you do a TV interview? Can you do a radio interview? We've got the Associated Press coming. Can we do an interview with them? And then there was like seminars and talks that the BHF would have, and they wanted somebody to go and speak. And I've gone and done hour-long speeches. As you can tell, I've got so much to say. It's, but again, I'd never, ever, I wouldn't have stood up in front of one person, yet alone a room of 150, 200 people, people that are in high jobs, high professions. And I thought, oh my God. But then I thought, no, this is great. This is an opportunity to get the awareness out there and to help from my perspective as a patient. And so I went and I did talks. I've done several talks now, all at the BHF and other places, NHS, for nursing staff, on cardiology wards and all sorts. And and like I say, so the good thing is, not only am I also able to help Ruth and everybody at the BHF, but like I say, they get an insight to everything that's going on in the group as well.
I find that really interesting, because one of the things, my hopes and aspirations for this podcast, is actually to enable people in the medical profession to actually understand what it's like from an emotional point of view from the patient.
Yeah.
With the greatest respect, they fix the machine. However, we're still left with the emotions and the feelings that there are there. So I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I'm so glad that a star is born, as they say. I always try to look for positives, and whilst your heart story has been really, it's been a terrible journey for you, actually this is a fantastic thing that's coming out of it. And you're helping so many other.
It makes people aware again. Like I say, the only way you can make people aware of what heart failure is and how it affects you is by talking about it. Just keep talking about it. And going back to what you were saying about the research side of things, again, I've been so honoured and privileged to be with the BHF. One of the recent things that they've been funding and working with London Imperial College is, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called a stem cell patch.
Yes, I have.
Now, I was just absolutely blown away. I had, like I say, I was lucky enough to go with a member of the BHF and meet the people at the doctors and people, researchers that had done this at London Imperial, and gowned up and everything in this room, and it was absolutely incredible to see a little white patch, like a little piece of gauze that they would use, on like a burn wound or something. No bigger than your thumbnail, but literally looked like a little piece of white gauze. They were on Petri dishes being incubated, and they were beating. And I just couldn't fathom, because you hear about stem cell research, but these stem cells have been taken from healthy hearts, injected onto these little patches, and these little patches were incubated. And they'd start beating like a healthy heart. And the hope is that I'm not, like I say, nobody knows the criteria of where you'd have to be able to have a procedure to have these. That's all still, they're only at the stage still where they're trying to refine it in the research line. But the fact is that the idea is these little patches can be put on parts of the heart, like on mine, the left side that doesn't work because it's dead muscle. Once your heart's had an attack, quite often if you are seen immediately in a heart attack, it's not quite as bad. But for somebody like me who lay in bed for 3 days, that's where guilt comes in. That's where all the damage, I keep thinking, had I have contacted somebody earlier, but I didn't, hey ho. But again, that all comes back to the guilt. But these little patches can be, again, it's open heart surgery, but they can be placed on the heart. And the hope is that these little patches, you can't regenerate heart cells. They're like brain cells. Once they're dead, they're dead. But they can grow new heart cells, which will hopefully start the heart pumping again. Now, like I say, how you qualify for this operation or who, I don't know what stage in the process of heart failure you'd need to be. I might be too far gone, like I say, but for people in perhaps stage 1 and stage 2, who knows? Like I say, nobody knows, but it is just phenomenal, and to think, like I say, 40 odd years ago, it was 50-50 to survive a heart surgery, open heart surgery. And here we are today.
I know, it's
just amazing,
isn't it? The way that technology is moving, and it moves so fast as well.
Yeah. And so again, working with the BHF, I just thrive because, I'm out there, not out there campaigning, but I'm campaigning in my own way and getting awareness out there. And it's just working brilliant. Ruth said to me that I should have to start paying you soon. And I said, no, I wouldn't. It's strange. And I said, no, I don't, like I say, I've never wanted recognition or acknowledgement for anything I do. I do it as much for me as I do anybody else.
Yes.
But the fact that I'm helping other people in doing it is, like I say, is just, it means the world to me. Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you're there because I'm a member of your group.
Yeah, I know you are.
And I've read some stuff that you've done, and I was really, really proud to be watching you on the British Heart Foundation Awards ceremony the other day.
Yes,
And you were nominated for all of this astounding work that you did. And we got to see a photograph with your trophy
award.
Your award.
Yeah, absolutely. That all came about because, again, one of the lovely ladies on the group, Tenor Kennedy Woodall, she decided that both myself and Elaine needed to be nominated for this award. In fact, she's put us up for the awards, I think, 2 years now. Mm-hmm. This is the 3rd year. And the previous 2 years, nothing really happened. We were just one of the nominees and that was it. Yeah. But it's lovely, very grateful, but just didn't really expect anything to come, more of it. Elaine was told that, absolutely fantastic story, one thing and the other, but they wouldn't be taking it any further.
Yeah.
And I was contacted and told that I was going to be one of the finalists. And I just couldn't believe it at the time because, again, although I'd watched the British Heart Foundation Awards before, I didn't really comprehend the amount of stories and people, that were nominees. And I just kept thinking there's so many people out there. Again, another way I look at things is okay, I'm bad, but you've only got to walk 100 yards within a hospital to find somebody that's going through so much more than you. And again, that's a lift, not a lift for me seeing somebody in that situation, but it makes me think, come on, But to get this award, like I say, I was one of 3, and I'd obviously looked up on the 2 people that I was up against, so as to say, and I thought, wow, amazing. And when I watched British Heart's awards the other night, I mean, I was just in tears all night, the emotional wreck, because there are so many amazing people out there, and they achieve some wonderful things to help the BHF. Because without them, like I say, I don't know where we'd been. They're just such an amazing charity. In fact, I've worked with diabetes charities, and I hate to say it, but British Heart Foundation knocks the pants off them. They are absolutely amazing. But yes, to have this award, like I say, okay, I didn't win it, but to be 1 out of 3 out of hundreds that were nominated for it, I mean, I was just so proud. And to have my little award, I'm just absolutely ecstatic. Like I say, I should be flying high, because, as I keep saying, I wasn't up for acknowledgement. I don't do it for acknowledgement or recognition, but the fact that I have been is, just more icing on the cake. Yeah.
It's well deserved.
Thank you.
So I want to wrap up this episode, but before we do, thinking about your mental health, positive attitude that you've been talking about, the way that you have found purpose in your life and energy as well. Have you got any top tips that you would share with the listeners about how to maintain and get through some of the tough times?
I have, yeah. Like I say, and again, this is one, the main thing that I learned during the mindfulness counselling that I did. And people probably know about this, but they don't really actually stop and think about it. And the fact is the past. You can't change it. I can feel guilty, I can feel whatever I want, but there's no point worrying about it. It's done, it's happened, you can't change it. Future, even somebody at 100% health, none of us have any idea what the future holds. We're all walking that very, very fine line every day. So nobody knows what the future holds. So what's the point of worrying about that? And all too often, people spend so much time worrying about the past and the what ifs and what ifs in the future that they don't live for the here and now and focus on the present. Enjoy life, make the most of life, make every second count, and be here, be present that's what's important, because, like I say, you just have to do everything you can each day to try and boost yourself and make that day count. Even if you just do one thing, like I do, even if I just did that one thing of saying good morning to somebody, it's as easy as that to do something positive, to lift somebody up. Mm-hmm. So anybody can do it, basically. Like I say, I've not got any special qualities or degrees. People can do it.
I think it's really interesting talking about being positive, because there is this thing that if you're positive, you'll get positivity back.
Absolutely.
More positivity breeds from that. And as you say, living in the moment, it's a gift.
Yeah. And that is so true. Like I say, I've been around a lot of negative people, and within probably a couple of hours of being around them, their glass is always half empty. And it's over trivial things sometimes. Not that I've got the right to judge, but you just sit and you think, so what if your window cleaner hasn't turned up? He's let you down today. And it's just little things that sometimes I hear, and something like that is as simple to put somebody in a downward spiral and make them really cross for the whole day. And I think, I can't understand. What's the point? What's the point? There's so much more to life than sitting worrying because your window cleaner hasn't turned up or whatever. You have to be positive. You have to try and take positive from everything. Yes, bad things happen. Of course they do. But you have to somehow turn it around and make it focus on the positive from it. Everything has positive and negativity in it. It's the way you see it, and it's not just the way you see it. What's important is the way you react to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So If people that are listening to this podcast would like to find out a little bit more about the group, can you just tell us again what the name of the group is? And I will put a link to it in the show notes, etc. So any of the ladies that might want to come along and get welcomed by you and said goodnight by you as well.
Like I say, it's a Facebook heart support group, and it's particularly for ladies. So like I say, it's a very safe, private, friendly, and an environment where we're open to talk about any kind of heart issues or problems you want to discuss. Like I say, in an open and friendly way. So, we'd love to have more members join us, because if we can be positive and help just, one person is amazing, but to be able to help lots of people is fantastic. And our name is Bells, which is BELLES, Hearties. And like I say, we're a Facebook group.
Thank you ever so much, Claire. It has been absolutely phenomenal talking to you, and I am privileged to speak to one of the finalists of the Heart Foundation.
Bless you. Oh, bless you, Sally.
Thank you, and I look forward to being part of your group.
Yeah, absolutely. Lovely to have you.
So that wraps it up again for today. I hope you got some takeaways from today's show. You can find a link to the Bells Hearties Facebook group in the show notes, or you can just search Bells Hearties and I'm sure you'll find them. Next week, I'm going to be interviewing Eliza Bell. In February 2019, Eliza had a successful heart transplant at Papworth Hospital in Cambridgeshire, UK. It was a life-saving event that focused her on fundraising and being a patient advocate. She shares her story of having a pacemaker fitted at 14 and a heart transplant aged 20. So until next week, bye-bye for now. And while you're over on Facebook, why not pop over and join my community? A place to chat, have fun, learn, feel supported and make friends. Go to www.myheartandmind.co.uk/community. It will take you straight there and you'll get a warm welcome.
You've been listening to Sally Crawley and the My Heart and Mind podcast, a show for you if you've had a heart attack, cardiac event or other life-changing experience and want to feel good. It's all about mastering your feelings and emotions so you can feel great and live the life you love. To find out more, visit www.myheartandmind.co.uk and note that that's an AND and not the ampersand character. Go be magnificent.